The applause was still echoing off the vaulted ceiling of the Grand Hyatt ballroom when Deputy Commissioner Diana Hale stepped to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and made me wish I had stayed home. I didn't know yet that this night, this room full of pressed uniforms and polished metals, would be the night that changed the shape of my entire life. I thought it was just going to be humiliating. I had no idea it was going to be something far worse and far better than that. A plus-size woman, size 18, in a deep navy blue fitted dress, standing alone near a marble column at the edge of the ballroom. She looks uncomfortable but dignified. Her dark hair is pinned up. She holds a clutch purse against her stomach like a shield. My name is Eleanor Wells. Nora, to the whole dispatch floor. 36 years old, 12 years on the night shift at the city's 911 Emergency Coordination Center. 3 commendations I keep in a drawer at home because the wall in my apartment is small, and I'd rather put up the plant print my mother gave me. I am a big woman, size 18, broad-shouldered and tall and soft in all the ways the world spends a lot of time deciding are wrong. My thighs touch when I walk. My arms don't fit comfortably into the chairs at the dispatch center, which I have mentioned to facilities every year for 12 years, and which they have addressed twice. I carry my weight the way I carry everything else, deliberately, without apology, and with the quiet awareness that every room I enter has already decided something about me before I open my mouth. Tonight I was wearing a navy blue dress that my friend Sandra had helped me pick out, fitted, elegant, the kind of dress that says I'm here and I am not hiding. Sandra had told me I looked beautiful. I believed her for about 45 minutes, which was exactly how long it took to get from my apartment to the Grand Hyatt ballroom and see the room I was walking into. Interior of the gala. Rows of decorated officers and officials at round tables, thin elegant women in cocktail dresses, a sea of medals and rank insignia. The atmosphere is exclusive and judgmental. The Emergency Services Recognition Night is the city's annual performance of gratitude. Firefighters, paramedics, officers. The people who run toward the thing everyone else runs from. They get plaques and handshakes and photographs with the mayor. It's earned, it's deserved. I don't begrudge any of it. What I do notice every year I've attended is that dispatchers are seated at the back tables, the ones near the kitchen. The ones where the servers pass through with trays and occasionally bump your chair. We are the invisible infrastructure, the voices on the other end of the line, the ones who answer at 2 a.m. and stay calm while other people's worlds fall apart. We don't wear uniforms. We don't carry badges. We sit at desks in flat fluorescent light, and we do the work. And when the work is done, the world looks through us the way it looks through telephone wires, useful, essential, and not worth seeing. I was here tonight because my supervisor Carl had submitted my name for the Civilian Service Commendation, 45 minutes on a call 3 months ago. A child. A crisis. I had stayed on the line, the child had survived, that was the work, I didn't need a plaque for it. But Carl had insisted, and I'd said yes because saying no to a commendation feels ungrateful. And I was raised by a woman who told me that ungrateful is the one thing you never let them call you. Deputy Commissioner Diana Hale was a woman built for podiums, slender, silver-haired, expensively tailored in a charcoal Stella McCartney suit. She had the particular confidence of someone who has never been ignored in a room and cannot imagine what it would feel like. Her speech was about courage. About the men and women who put their bodies between the city and its dangers. She did not mention dispatchers. Not once in 14 minutes. I sat at table 19, back row near the kitchen doors, and I did not let my face change. I have spent 12 years controlling my voice during emergencies. Controlling my face during a speech was considerably easier. The humiliation came after the speech, the way it always does, not from the podium but from the margins where cruelty can pretend to be casual. Lieutenant Adrienne Costaras was the daughter of a retired fire chief and the wife of a precinct commander. She was the kind of woman who wore her husband's rank like jewelry, thin, blonde, perpetually glossed, and utterly certain that the social hierarchy of the NYPD extended to banquet seating. She appeared at the edge of my table with a champagne glass and 2 friends who laughed at exactly the intervals she expected them to. "Nora, right?" Adrienne said loudly enough for the surrounding tables to hear. "The phone girl?" "Dispatcher," I said steadily. "Right." She smiled. The kind of smile that is a weapon. I always forget, is that the one where you just sit there and type, or do you actually do something? Her friends laughed on cue. I just think it's so sweet that they're giving out commendations for desk work now. Very inclusive. She looked me up and down with the specific practiced cruelty of a woman who has been thin her entire life and considers it a moral achievement. Although I'm surprised they found a chair that could hold the commendation and the recipient. The laughter spread. Not far. 3 tables, maybe 4. But in a room that was already looking through me, 3 tables of laughter felt like a stadium. I felt the hot, familiar sting behind my eyes. The one I've been feeling since I was 14 and too big for the uniform my school required, and the gym teacher made a comment about special ordering that the whole class heard. The one I've been fighting for 22 years. The one that says you take up too much space and the world has noticed and it finds you funny. But I did not cry. I have talked a man down from a bridge at 3 a.m. with nothing but my voice. I have talked a mother through chest compressions on her own child for 11 minutes until the paramedics arrived. I have sat in a flat-lit room at desk 14 for 12 years and held other people's fear in my hands and not let it shake. A woman who laughs at my body does not get my tears. "If you'll excuse me, Lieutenant," I said. My voice, the same voice I use on calls, steady, level, the kind of voice that sounds like it has never been afraid. "I have somewhere to be." "Where?" Adrian called after me. "The buffet?" More laughter. I turned and walked toward the lobby doors. My face was composed. My chest was burning. I was going to get my coat and go home and sit in my apartment and drink lukewarm coffee and be fine. The way I am always fine. The way a big woman learns to be fine because the alternative is letting them see what they did to you. I didn't make it to the doors. The doors opened before I reached them. Not the quiet, polite way doors open at a gala. They opened with the heavy, deliberate swing of a man who has never waited for a door to be held and who considers locked rooms a temporary inconvenience. The first thing I saw was the size of him, broad, tall, dark-suited in a way that was not the city's formal. It was older than that. Heavier, the kind of tailoring that says the suit was made for the man, and the man was made for rooms that rearrange themselves around him. Behind him stood 2 men in dark overcoats who positioned themselves at the doorframe the way trained security positions itself, not blocking but making clear that blocking was available. The lobby security team had not stopped him. I learned later that they had tried, briefly. The ambient noise in the ballroom dropped. Not to silence, to the specific electric hush that happens when a room full of law enforcement officers recognizes a type of power that their badges cannot touch. Heads turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. Hands moved to laps, to earpieces, to old habits. He walked past the podium where Diana Hale had spent 14 minutes not mentioning dispatchers. He walked past the table of decorated firefighters. He walked past Adrienne Costaras, who had gone perfectly, beautifully pale. He walked directly to me. I was standing in the aisle between table 19 and the exit, frozen mid-retreat, my coat half gathered in my arms. I had never met him. I had never seen him in person, but I knew who he was the way you know a weather system, not by looking at it, but by the way everything around it changes. Dante Greco, the man the city called Don Greco when it called him anything at all. Head of the Greco family. The name I had seen in the call triage 3 months ago, the address Luca had flagged, the address I had understood the significance of in the fraction of a second before I decided it wouldn't change how I took the call. He stopped 2 feet from me. Up close, the sheer physical presence of him was overwhelming. He smelled of cedar and dark tobacco and something I couldn't name that was not cologne. It was just him, the scent of a man who moved through the world leaving a gravitational impression. His dark eyes moved over my face with an intensity that made my breathing change. Not the way men usually look at me, the skip over, the assessment and dismissal, the look that calculates my size and decides I am not worth the rest of the calculation. He looked at me the way I look at a call log, completely, precisely, missing nothing. 45 minutes, he said. His voice was low and rough and carried without effort. The way a voice carries when it has never needed to be raised. My heart was slamming against my ribs, my coat was still in my arms. The entire ballroom was watching. "Yes," I said. "My daughter told me," he said, "that the woman on the phone didn't sound afraid." A pause, heavy, loaded. She said, "Papa, I think she was scared." But she didn't let me hear it, not once, not for 45 minutes. The silence in the room was absolute. 400 people, officers, officials, the deputy commissioner, Adrienne Costaras and her champagne glass cruelty, all of them watching a Mafia Don stand in the middle of their banquet and address the plus-size phone girl they had been laughing at 5 minutes ago. He reached forward and took the coat from my arms. Not roughly, with a deliberateness that was worse than roughness because it was a choice. He held it. The most dangerous man in New York City was holding my coat. "This woman," he said, not turning from me but pitching his voice so the room could hear every syllable, "kept my daughter alive for 45 minutes with nothing but her voice and her nerve and her refusal to hang up. She is the only person in this room I came to see tonight." He looked over his shoulder at Adrienne Costaras. His expression did not change, but something in his eyes shifted, a coldness that made the lieutenant's champagne glass tremble visibly in her manicured hand. "And if anyone in this room has something to say about the woman who saved my child's life, about her work, about her chair, about her body, about anything at all, I invite them to say it now. To me." No one spoke. No one breathed. He turned back to me. And for the first time since I'd entered the ballroom, someone was looking at me as if I were the most important person in the room, because to him I was. "Come," he said. "I'd like you to sit at my table." "You don't have a table here," I said, because my mouth works on dispatch autopilot when my brain is overwhelmed. The faintest flicker of something crossed his face. Not quite a smile. Something warmer than a smile and more dangerous. "Then we'll take one." He didn't ask me what I wanted to drink. He told the nearest server to bring 2 glasses of Macallan 25, and to find a table that was not near the kitchen doors. A table appeared. I have noticed that tables appear when Dante Greco needs them. We sat, and then he said the thing that changed everything. "Tell me what you heard." Not what I did. Not how I handled the call. What I heard. I looked at him, this man who had walked into a room full of law enforcement to find a dispatcher. And I understood, in the way I understand a call in the first 3 seconds, that he was not here for a thank you. He was here because something about that night was unfinished, and I was the only person who had the piece he was missing. I closed my eyes for a moment, and I went back. 2:14 a.m. on a Tuesday. The call connected, a whisper. Small and deliberate and terrified and doing its absolute best. "My name is Mara. There are men in my house," I had said. "Mara, my name is Nora. I am right here with you. I'm not going anywhere." That was the promise. The one I made knowing the address. The one my supervisor Carl told me at minute 12 I should break, because protocol said the call should be transferred to a specialized negotiation line. The one I kept for 45 minutes because I had said the words and I meant them. But here is what no one on the dispatch floor knew. Here is what the official report does not contain. Here is the thing that I had been carrying for 3 months like a flash drive in a clutch purse, quietly, carefully, knowing it was worth more than anyone realized. While I kept Mara calm, while I breathed with her, while I asked her about winter coats and dragon books and her grandmother's perfume, I was listening. Not just to her, to everything behind her. 12 years on the night shift teaches you to hear what people don't say. But it also teaches you to hear what's happening in the spaces between the words. Background noise is information. A closing door tells you its weight, its mechanism, its location relative to the speaker. Footsteps tell you floor surface, shoe type, body weight, pace, and whether the person walking knows where they're going. Voices through walls tell you distance, number of speakers, and, if you're very good and I am very good, regional accent markers that narrow geographic origin to a 30-mile radius. I heard 3 men enter the residence. I knew it was 3 because I could distinguish 3 separate gait patterns on what sounded like hardwood flooring. The first was heavy and deliberate work boots, someone who had done this before. The second was lighter, faster, moving with the nervous energy of someone who had not. The third stayed near the entrance, a lookout, based on his movement pattern. I heard the doors being opened. Interior doors I could tell from the hinge sounds and the change in acoustic resonance as each room was entered. The house had a central hallway layout. Mara's closet was on the 2nd floor based on the muffled quality of the sounds below her. At minute 9, one of the men spoke, 6 words barely audible through the closet door and the phone connection. But I heard the vowel shifts. Southern Italian dialect, Calabrian, specifically the kind I'd learned to recognize from years of calls in a city where every neighborhood carries its own accent map. I wrote it all down, every sound, every timestamp, every directional inference. While breathing steadily into the headset. While telling an 8-year-old girl that she was brave. While my colleagues on the dispatch floor gave me the quiet that a person needs when they're holding something enormous. At minute 14, I passed my first handwritten note to Carl, 3 intruders. Armed probable. Second floor clear except NW bedroom closet, child is there. Entry team should breach through the east-facing ground floor. Hostiles concentrated in the western corridor. Carl read it. He looked at me. He looked at the note. Then he picked up his phone and relayed it to the field units word for word. At minute 23, Mara whispered, "I'm scared." "I know," I said. "You're allowed to be scared. Scared just means your body knows something important is happening. It doesn't mean something bad is going to happen." "You don't sound scared," she said. "That's my job," I said. "You sound very brave." I didn't tell her that while she was being brave, I was building a complete tactical map of her house from sound alone. I didn't tell her that the second intruder had a slight limp in his left leg, audible in his gait asymmetry, which would later be the identifying detail that matched him to a known associate of Carmine Valli. I didn't tell her that her 45 minutes of quiet courage were giving me 45 minutes of audio intelligence that no surveillance operation could have gathered. She didn't need to know any of that. She needed a steady voice. She needed someone who wasn't afraid. She needed me to say I'm not going anywhere and mean it. I meant it. At minute 26, she whispered. They tried the closet door, it was locked. They didn't try again. My heart rate, which I had kept below 80 for 26 minutes through pure discipline, spiked to 110. I breathed it back down before my next sentence. Good. You're safe where you are. At minute 28, she said. Can I tell you something? I hum when I'm scared. My nonna used to hum. Then hum, I said, very quietly. I'll listen. She hummed. A melody I didn't recognize but which was clearly learned by heart. Her grandmother's song. And while she hummed, I listened to the intruders retreat from the second floor, heard the front door mechanism engage. A deadbolt, brass, recently oiled, and noted the time, 02:42. They were leaving. 12 seconds later, the field units arrived. The tactical approach Carl had relayed, my tactical approach, built from nothing but 45 minutes of sound, meant the entry team knew exactly where to go and exactly where not to go. There was no standoff, no hostage escalation, no shots fired. The child was extracted from the closet in under 3 minutes, clean, efficient, invisible, like the woman who made it possible. I told Dante Greco all of this at a borrowed table in the Grand Hyatt ballroom while 400 people pretended not to watch. His whiskey sat untouched. His dark eyes hadn't left my face. You mapped the house, he said. Not a question from sound, I said. Yes. You identified the Calabrian accent. Southern Calabrian, Crotone province, based on the vowel shift pattern, consistent with men recruited from the Valley network. Something changed in his face. It was subtle, a tightening of the jaw, a darkening of the eyes. But I have spent 12 years reading micro-expressions through audio tone, and I have become very good at reading them in person too. What crossed Dante Greco's face was not surprise. It was the expression of a man who has just realized that the weapon he came to thank is considerably more dangerous than he estimated. You know who sent them? He said quietly. I know who sent them, I confirmed. I've known for 3 months. I also know that the third man, the lookout, had a communication device. A radio based on the burst static pattern I heard at minutes 6, 15, and 31. He was reporting to someone in real time, and the signal compression artifacts suggest a frequency range consistent with modified police band equipment. I paused. Let that land. Someone with access to law enforcement communication hardware ordered that break-in. Don Greco. The men were Vallis, but the equipment came from inside this building. The air between us changed. The ballroom was still there, the chandeliers, the jazz, the medals, and handshakes. But the table we sat at had become something else entirely. A briefing room, a war table, and I was the intelligence officer. You said someone inside this building? Dante repeated, his voice dropping to a register that I imagine most people only hear once. The radio frequency I heard has a specific modulation signature. Standard civilian radios don't produce it. Modified law enforcement units do, the kind that are decommissioned from precinct inventory but not always destroyed. I spent the last 3 months researching it on my own time. I pulled decommissioning records from 2 precincts. His eyes widened fractionally. I continued, my voice steady, the same voice I use at 2 a.m. when someone needs me to not be afraid. The unit that matches the signal pattern was logged as destroyed 18 months ago at the 47th precinct. The destruction order was signed by a deputy inspector named Franco Bianchi. Dante's gaze shifted just for a moment across the ballroom. I followed it. Standing near the bar, laughing with a group of senior officers, was a man I had seen in the precinct logs. Dress uniform. Deputy inspector's insignia. A laugh that carried the particular ease of a man who believes he is invisible. Franco Bianchi. He signed the destruction order for the radio, I said. But the radio wasn't destroyed. It was used 3 months ago to coordinate an assault on your daughter. The signal was live for 45 minutes. I have the timestamps from the dispatch audio recording, and I have the frequency analysis I ran on my personal equipment at home. I reached into my clutch, the same small navy purse that Adrian Costaras probably thought contained nothing more important than a lipstick, and pulled out a USB drive. Everything is on here, I said. The audio analysis. The frequency match. The decommissioning records. The connection to Carmine Valley's network through the Calabrian accent identification. And the link to Deputy Inspector Bianchi through the radio hardware. I set the drive on the table between us. Dante Greco stared at the drive. Then he looked at me. Not at my body, not at my size, not at the navy dress or the table near the kitchen or any of the things the world uses to decide what I'm worth. He looked at me the way you look at something you have underestimated so fundamentally that the underestimation itself becomes the most dangerous thing in the room. You did this, he said slowly, from a desk, with a headset. And 12 years of listening, I said. Why didn't you go to the police? I looked at him steadily. The police signed the destruction order? Don Greco. Who exactly would I go to? Before he could respond, the quality of the air changed again. Movement. Not the casual movement of a gala, the sharp, purposeful movement of someone who has realized they've been identified. Bianchi was moving. I don't know what tipped him off. Maybe someone saw the USB drive. Maybe he'd been watching Dante's table since the dawn arrived. Maybe he had the instincts of a man who has been dirty long enough to know when the dirt is about to be turned over. But he was crossing the ballroom with 2 men who were not officers and were not guests and whose movement patterns I noticed instantly, because I notice movement patterns the way other people notice faces, were trained. Military or private security, hands positioned for access to concealed carries. Don Greco, Bianchi said, arriving at our table with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. What an unexpected pleasure. I wasn't aware you were on the guest list. Dante didn't stand. Didn't react. The absolute stillness of a man who has survived things that would have killed lesser men. Deputy Inspector, he said. I came to see the woman who saved my daughter. Bianchi's eyes flicked to me. The assessment was instant. The same assessment I'd been receiving all night. Plus-size woman. Desk worker. Nobody. The dismissal was so practiced, so automatic, that he didn't even try to hide it. Ah. The phone operator. His smile widened. Yes, I heard about that. Very commendable. Staying on the line, keeping the child calm. That's what dispatchers do, isn't it? Follow the script. I don't follow scripts, Deputy Inspector, I said, my voice level. I write tactical intelligence from audio signatures. It's a different skill set. Something flickered behind his eyes, a tiny fracture in the performance. I'm not sure I follow, Bianchi said carefully. You don't need to follow, Dante said. She does the following. You just need to listen. He looked at me. A single nod. I took a breath. The same breath I take before every call. The one that settles everything inside me into the particular focus where I am more myself than anywhere else. At 2:14 a.m. On March 12th, I said, I received a 911 call from an 8-year-old girl. During the 45 minutes I stayed on the line, I identified 3 intruders by gait pattern, determined their positions within the residence through acoustic mapping, identified a Southern Calabrian dialect consistent with the Valley recruitment network, and detected a modified police band radio being used for real-time coordination. Bianchi's face went very still. That radio, I continued, operates on a frequency that produces a specific modulation artifact. I isolated the artifact from the dispatch recording. I matched it to a unit model that was logged as destroyed at the 47th Precinct 18 months ago. I paused. The destruction order was signed by you. The ballroom had gone quiet around us. Not the polite quiet of attentive listening. The charged, electric quiet of a room that has realized it is witnessing something it cannot stop. Bianchi's 2 men shifted. Dante's 2 men shifted in response. The geometry of violence that civilians never see and that I have heard through phone lines 100 times was arranging itself in the physical space around me. That's quite an imagination, Bianchi said, but his voice had lost its warmth. Audio analysis from a 911 recording? That's not admissible. That's not even real forensics. You're a phone operator with a headset, and, let's be honest, too much time on the night shift. I stood up. I am not a small woman. When I stand, I take up space, and I have spent most of my life apologizing for it. But in this moment, in this specific, precise, necessary moment, I did not apologize. I occupied every inch of myself, and I let him see it. The audio analysis is backed by spectral frequency documentation, I said. I ran it through open-source signal processing software and cross-referenced the modulation signature against the manufacturer's specifications for the exact unit model listed in your precinct's decommissioning log. I also pulled the procurement records showing the original purchase, the serial number, and the inventory transfer to the 47th Precinct Evidence Locker, which you oversee. Bianchi's face had gone from still to white. Furthermore, I continued, the Calabrian dialect I identified during the call was subsequently confirmed when 2 of the 3 intruders were apprehended by the response team I helped direct. Their arrest records list their place of origin as Crotone Province, exactly as I noted at minute 9 of the call. I picked up the USB drive from the table. I did not give it to Dante. I held it up so Bianchi could see it. Everything is documented, time-stamped, sourced. I am a dispatcher, deputy inspector. I don't carry a gun, I don't have a badge. I sit at a desk and I listen. But I listen better than anyone in this room, and I heard you. Bianchi looked at the drive, he looked at me. He looked at Dante Greco, who had risen from his chair and was standing behind me like a wall of dark-suited inevitability. And then he looked at the room, at the 400 officers and officials who had heard every word. His 2 men looked at each other, then at Dante's 2 men who had moved into positions that made the mathematics of the situation very clear. You're making a serious mistake, Bianchi said, but his voice cracked on the last word. I don't make mistakes in my logs, I said. The audio doesn't lie. The frequencies don't lie. And your signature on that destruction order doesn't lie. Bianchi turned and walked out of the ballroom. Quickly, his men followed. By the time he reached the lobby, I had already handed the USB drive to Captain Angela Reyes of Internal Affairs, who had been sitting 3 tables away and who, I had noticed, had been listening to every word with the expression of a woman who had just been given the case of her career. The case that a plus-size night shift dispatcher had built from a desk, with a headset, in the dark. The ballroom emptied slowly after that. Officers left in clusters, talking quietly. Diana Hale left without giving any more speeches. Adrian Costaras left without making any more jokes about chairs. Dante and I sat at the borrowed table. The whiskey was warm now. Neither of us had touched it. I came here tonight to thank you, he said quietly. For my daughter, for the 45 minutes, for the song. She hummed her grandmother's song, and I didn't know she still had it. My mother died 2 years ago. I thought the melody went with her. His voice, on that last sentence, had the particular quality of pain that I recognize from the hardest calls, the kind that lives in a man's throat and only comes out when he has decided to let someone hear it. She's a brave girl, I said. She stayed still. She breathed. She trusted me. That trust is not something I take lightly. You could have transferred the call, he said. Yes. Protocol said you should. Yes. Why didn't you? I looked at him. This man who filled doorways, who silenced rooms, who had come to a city banquet in a dark suit to find the voice his daughter couldn't forget. Because I made her a promise, I said. And I keep my promises. He was quiet for a long time. I am comfortable with silence. It is in many ways the core of my skill, knowing when not to speak, knowing when the silence itself is the work. Then he said, "What do you want, Nora?" Name it. I had been asked this question before. Not by a man like this, but by the world in its various forms. What do you want? And the answer was always some version of less space, less weight, less visibility. The world asks big women what they want, and then offers them ways to be smaller. I want to stay at my desk, I said. He blinked. Your desk, desk 14, night shift, the dispatch center. I'm offering you. I know what you're offering, and I'm telling you what I want. I met his eyes with the steadiness that has been building in me for 12 years, one call at a time. I don't want to be someone's asset. I don't want to be moved. I don't want a job in your organization or a position in your world. I want to sit at desk 14 and take the calls that come in at 2 a.m. because that is where I do the most good. That is where I am myself." Something shifted in his face. The calculation faded. The power calculus that men like him run on every interaction. What is this person worth? What can they give me? How do they fit in my architecture? Dissolved. What replaced it was something I had never seen directed at me before. He reached across the table. His hand, large, calloused in specific places that I catalogued automatically because I catalog everything, covered mine. Not possessively, reverently, as if my hand were something he was being trusted with and he intended to deserve the trust. "You are the most extraordinary woman I have ever encountered," he said, his voice low, rough, stripped of everything performative. "You dismantled a corrupt deputy inspector with a headset and a USB drive. You mapped a house from sound. You kept my daughter alive by breathing. And you are sitting here telling me that what you want, the only thing you want, is a desk and a night shift. And a chair that fits," I added. "Facilities has been ignoring my requests for 12 years. The sound he made was not quite a laugh. It was something closer to surrender, the specific surrender of a man who has met someone he cannot buy, cannot intimidate, and cannot look away from. "You'll have your chair," he said, "and your desk, and your night shift. And I am going to come to that dispatch center every Tuesday at 2 a.m. with decent coffee. Because the machine in your break room hasn't made a hot cup since April. And I intend to be the person who fixes that." "That's not necessary," I said. "It is to me," he said. He stood. He offered me his hand. Not to lead me, to walk beside me. I took it. His fingers closed around mine, warm, certain, absolute. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt something I had been building toward for 12 years without knowing it. The feeling of being completely, precisely, exactly where I was supposed to be, in the body I was supposed to be in, taking up exactly the amount of space I was supposed to take up. "Dante," I said as we walked toward the doors. "Yes. If you're coming to the dispatch center on Tuesdays, you should know that I don't make small talk during calls, and I don't share my desk, and I will not rearrange my shift for your schedule. I wouldn't expect you to." "Good," I paused, "and bring the good coffee. Not the Macallan real coffee. 2 sugars. 2 sugars," he repeated, as if memorizing the most important intelligence he'd received all evening. We walked out of the Grand Hyatt into the cool Manhattan night. The city hummed around us, sirens in the distance, traffic, the 10,000 small sounds that a city makes when it thinks no one is listening. I am always listening. Behind us, the emergency services recognition night was over. The commendation I had come for was still sitting uncollected at the podium. I didn't need it. I had never needed it. The work was always the thing, not the plaque, not the recognition, not the room's permission to exist. Dante's hand rested on the small of my back as we crossed the sidewalk toward his waiting car. Warm, steady, present. The specific touch of a man who is not trying to move you somewhere, but who simply wants you to know he is there. "Dante," I said. "Yes, Nora." For the record, I stayed on the line because it was the right thing to do. Not because of who her father was. I would have done it for any child. He looked down at me. In the city light, his dark eyes held something I had never seen from the world and had stopped expecting. The look of a man who sees exactly who you are. All of it, the weight and the warmth and the 12 years of steadiness and the intelligence and the softness and the strength, and wants precisely that. Not less, not different. "This." "I know," he said. "That is exactly why I'm here." The car pulled into the Manhattan night. I sat in the leather seat, soft, warm, designed for a person of any size, which I noticed and filed away, and I thought about Mara's voice in the dark. The whisper. The hum. The grandmother's melody. I thought about what Mara had said at minute 28. "He always comes. He says I am the one person in the world he is never late for," and now he was sitting beside me. This man who had walked into a room full of badges and medals to find the voice that had held his daughter together for 45 minutes. The city's most feared man. Looking at the city's most overlooked woman and seeing everything the world had told her wasn't worth seeing. I didn't know what this was going to become. I am not a woman who makes predictions about things she can't control. I make predictions about audio signatures and gait patterns and the distance between a closing door and a frightened child. The rest I let unfold. But I knew one thing with the absolute certainty of 12 years and 1,000 calls and one 45-minute promise kept. Whatever this was, I was not going to make myself smaller for it. Not my voice, not my body, not my terms. He would come to me at desk 14. He would bring coffee with 2 sugars, and I would decide, call by call, night by night, whether the man matched the promise. I am very, very good at listening to whether people mean what they say. So here's what I want to leave you with tonight. 45 minutes. That's what it took. Not with a gun, not with a badge, not with a corner office or a law degree or any of the things the world tells you make a person powerful. With a headset, with a voice, with 12 years of sitting at a desk in flat light, taking the calls that come in when the city thinks it's sleeping. I am a big woman who sits at desk 14 and listens. That is the whole of what I am. And it turns out that what I am was enough to save a child, dismantle a conspiracy, and make the most dangerous man in New York City bring me coffee? So before you go, lock in your answer. If it had been your headset, your desk, that whisper at 2:14 a.m., would you have stayed on, made the promise, kept it, refused the transfer, held the line for 45 minutes because that's what she needed? Or would you have transferred it, followed the protocol, done the correct procedural thing, trusted the system to handle it? There's no wrong answer. The protocol exists for good reasons. I just want to know which one you are. Drop it below. And if there's someone in your life who does the invisible work, the dispatcher, the nurse, the teacher, the friend who always picks up at 2 a.m., who holds other people's fear with nothing but their steadiness, tell them this week that you see them, because someone should. And one more thing before I let you go. If this story kept you on the line, there's a small way you can stay on a little longer. Below this video, there's a hype button. Tap it. Use your points. Think of it like keeping the line open for one more second. You don't know who's listening on the other end, but your voice might be the one that reaches them tonight. Nora Wells, Desk 14, Night Shift, where the coffee is finally hot and the work is everything.